Hello, everyone, and welcome to the inaugural episode 1 of the Rutgers Esports Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Fay, the director of the newly constructed but as of yet unopened Esports Center. That's a 60 PC LAN center that operates out of the Bush Student Center in Rutgers, New Brunswick. I joined the Rutgers community back in December of 2019 and spent the first 5 months preparing to open the Rutgers Esports Center to the public, and then, like many of the best laid plans in 2020, they got turned upside down. However, one of the silver linings of our delayed opening is that it's allowed us to accelerate our timeline on all the awesome esports and gaming relating programming that we have to provide virtually for students who aren't on campus. So I just want to thank everybody for turning out to support. You can expect daily live streams and regular YouTube VODs throughout the rest of the summer and heading into the fall. So I hope that you'll keep tuning in as we keep developing the platform. But that's actually not the subject of today's episode. Like most esports programs, they don't just turn up out of the blue. More often than not, it requires talented and motivated students to demonstrate to the university community just what collegiate esports is and what it could be. And so I think it's appropriate that our first episode covers the student organization that did and continues to do just that for Rutgers, and that's the Rutgers Esports Club. With me today, I'm pleased to have Seth Santos, who is the newly elected president of the Rutgers Esports Club. Seth, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, happy to have you on. So to kick things off, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself, your name, year, major, home state, a little bit about how you ended up at Rutgers.
Yeah, you got it. All right. So, yeah, as you know, I'm Seth Santos. I'm the current president of Rutgers Esports. I am a rising senior at Rutgers, and I am currently dual majoring in computer science, information technology, and informatics, and most recently have been admitted to the master's program for information. I came from New Jersey, born and raised here for the most part, and how I ended up at Rutgers, it was just my most convenient option. I live like right there, always saw it on, whenever I was traveling by, and it's, just decided to go.
That's awesome. So it's definitely home for you. It's in your backyard.
It very much is very much home for me. Yeah.
Cool. So what was your background like, gaming wise, before coming to Rutgers? What platforms were you playing on? What games were you really interested in when you were younger?
Yeah. For the longest time, it was primarily console. I remember the very first video game I played. My stepdad's version of babysitting me when I was about 2 years old was putting a controller in my hand and playing Halo 1 on the original Xbox. I don't know what I was doing, but that's where it all started. And then it wasn't until recently in high school when I got my first gaming PC I built myself, and then transitioned to PC gaming. And but yeah, in terms of background, that's really where it all comes down to. I first started playing competitively in Halo. Yeah.
Awesome. So what was your first experience with the Rutgers Esports Club like? It's a big transition, one, to just come to a university, as large as Rutgers can sometimes, I think, feel a little overwhelming looking for, the different interest groups that are right for you. So how did you first hear about it and start participating?
Yeah, you're right. It's very much overwhelming. But how I first came about it was the involvement fair that's held every summer at at Rutgers on College Ave. Obviously, plans to be different this year, but yeah, that's where I first heard of the esports club, as well as many others. But I decided to come out, give it a try. The first club actually that I joined under the umbrella was the StarCraft and OSU club, which is now Rhythm Games Club.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that was OSU was the game I was the most into at the time, so I thought what better place than that, and then I started participating. I started to, look through all the other clubs that were around, just, get a feel for everything. But ultimately, I made my home where, at StarCraft and OSU.
Cool. And so what was that initial introduction like? Did you start off by attending first just our general meeting, or was it an event that you attended first, or a competition that you participated in first? What was that like?
Yeah, it was general meeting. The club as a whole was, I'd say, one of the more relaxed ones, not necessarily as too competitively oriented as the other ones, because there were also two games, but not only that, that the StarCraft and OSU club at the time served as a sort of incubator for other clubs. So you had a bunch of people in the room playing tons of different games, and not just limited to StarCraft or OSU. And then And it was for that reason that we eventually evolved into rhythm games and become more of a miscellaneous club. So really, I went to the general meetings and just hung out, and it was a very fostering community.
Cool. Yeah, that actually kind of leads into my next question. You mentioned some terms like, like umbrella club and, the different genres of club. Talking a little bit more about that, what is the origins of Rutgers Esports? What did it look like when it started, and what's kind of the structure now?
Yeah, so as it started, from what I understand, it was just a group of friends who wanted to see the esports community at Rutgers grow and just become something big at the university, and all just united under everyone's passion for games and the whole community, and what ultimately like just the whole esports community represents in people's lives, because video games make up a very good portion of this generation, and a little bit of the last as well. So mostly just a group of friends came together and had a dream, made it happen. Yep.
Yeah, and so now the structure of the club, you alluded to it a little bit, is, it was originally founded on this, joined passion for gaming, but obviously every gaming community is a little bit different. You spend so much time playing a particular game, you're going to talk a little different, you're going to like the little different aspects of competitive or casual and things like that. So how does that manifest in the structure of the club and how it operates today?
In terms of just how it is in general.
Yeah, so like for example, you mentioned that the Rhythm Games Club is a little bit more of a miscellaneous club,
right?
Or maybe a little bit less of a competitive club. And so, could you talk about what is the distinction between Rutgers Esports Club and the umbrella clubs that all fit within it, and how there is kind of that flexibility when it comes to casual versus competitive events versus competition.
Right. Yeah. So the Rutgers Esports org is like an umbrella organization, and there's a bunch of different clubs that fall under that organization as a whole. Like Rhythm Games, Counter-Strike, Dota, League of Legends, Overwatch, Smash, a bunch of other ones. And all the games, they operate sort of autonomously. They're their own things. They're left to their own devices and handle themselves pretty much. I could say that as also president of Rhythm Games Club, we primarily do our own events as the other clubs do as well, our own gatherings and meetups and whatnot. Whereas Rutgers Esports is sort of, Rutgers Esports, we organize the bigger events for that include all the clubs, like Scarlet Classic, Fireside, all these big main semester events, as well as, getting the resources that we need to, help the clubs and help the org as a whole, succeed.
That's awesome. Yeah, I definitely think that when it comes to club structure, that's one of the more ideal ways to do it. Just kind of what I mentioned before about, it allows for a lot of flexibility and a lot of nuance between the different game titles without necessarily isolating any one gaming community.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is kind of, getting off on a tangent, but I think it might be important for people to hear about, that it sounds like there's also a pretty good opportunity there for additional clubs to form if the interest is there. And what kind of would that process look like? And do you have any examples of some recent ones that have gone through that process? For
new clubs to get started? Yeah. I mean, there's always new clubs coming in and coming out, all the time. I mean, we started. I don't remember the exact number we started, but we're currently at 12, 13 clubs at the moment. So getting started, it's just getting a bunch of people together, fulfill all the requirements, at least on the Rutgers administrative side, and approach us. And if it's a game promising, then hey, we'll add it to our roster. I mean, our most recent one was Fighting Games Club, which was, I remember when I first came into Rutgers, wasn't an official club and incubated in StarCraft and Osu, and then and then after like a year or two, like they officially registered after they got so many people playing, and and they just officially became a Rutgers Esports. So it's really just as long as you have the people to organize and get together, then it's not that hard. Yeah.
Very cool. So for people who are listening and sound like that might be a good idea, and they're interested in maybe forming a club and being a part of the Rutgers Esports Club, or even just participating in the Rutgers Esports Club, what exactly is the club's mission and vision? What exactly is the purpose that they would be playing into?
So I mean, esports as a whole, I mean, it's just becoming a generally like an increasingly larger industry. Every day, it's getting bigger and bigger, and especially given the current state of the world. I mean, esports has proven to be a field or an industry that remains that's pretty resilient in the face of something that's going on right now. And I think by having something that's so diverse in terms of games and people, you can include so many different walks of life to get involved and just communicate, hang out with each other, because there's it's not like so isolating as regular sports. You're into this one, you're into that one. Whereas esports, I mean, everyone likes video games. I mean, a good portion of people like video games. And
some kind of video game, at least.
Yeah, some kind of video game. There's always going to be some community revolving around a particular game. And that just that is what you're contributing to. You're contributing to the personal community with a specific game, or just the overall esports community as a whole. It's something that people can get together and talk about and play with together. So
awesome. Yeah, and so one of the things that really stood out to me when I was looking into this position here at Rutgers was just how well Rutgers Esports Club was already representing the university, and even today, a lot of people have been really, really impressed with what the club has been able to achieve so far. So what would you say are some of the major achievements, competitive or otherwise, of the Rutgers Esports Club since its founding?
Yeah. So I mean, our achievements. I mean, one of the most recent achievements that I'm familiar with personally is Scarlet Classic 5. Scarlet Classic is always our biggest event of the academic year. This takes place towards the end of the spring semester. And our most recent one, Scarlet Classic 5, we hosted spring of 2019. We were able to rent out the Rutgers Athletic Center, the RAC, and we had easy over 1,000 attendees, and that was easily our biggest event in the org's history.
Yeah, and that's a massive venue. It's not every day that student organizations are reserving that for events. So that is definitely, I think, a statement to the type of interest that the Rutgers Esports Club is drawing for sure. Any others?
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the LAN Center, which you're very well aware of.
That's right.
Yeah. The LAN Center was something that we've also wanted and worked for a while as well. From talking with the university admins, trying to get feedback, getting feedback for the layout, the equipment, getting the space, and just among other things that I understand were some of the work that my predecessors put into making it happen. As well as you, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for the general org, I mean, when we were in person, we've always had very large turnouts to our just general meetings. Like, our meetings would regularly hit around upwards of 200 members across the different clubs under the umbrella. And our Discord alone, I mean, we have around 24 to 2,500 members at its current state. I mean, we are currently one of the largest orgs at Rutgers, sitting at I believe the third most funded on campus.
Wow.
Yeah, and we're preceding, I think, one of the culture clubs and dance marathon, but and also. On the East Coast alone, we are actually the biggest collegiate esports organization.
That's awesome. And you mentioned the Scarlet Classic. What are some of the other signature events that you would think would be important to know about for students that are interested?
Yeah. So our main two events are Scarlet Classic and Fireside. Scarlet Classic takes place in the spring, and Fireside takes place in the fall. Those are our flagship events for each semester. In the beginning of the semester, we have we have like a sort of introductory event, a more casual oriented one. I know it's fall friendlies, and spring I believe it's spring rally. I cannot remember the exact name for life of me right now, but that's unfortunate. But yeah, it's so we have just general events throughout the semester, just general club meetings. But yeah, our signature events are Scarlet and Fireside.
Very cool. So obviously, a lot of the events that you just mentioned, and a lot of the achievements you just mentioned, including even the esports center, are in-person events. And obviously, with the remote learning and stay-at-home orders, all of that must have had a major impact on the regular operations of your org. What were some of those impacts, and how is the club trying to adjust during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, the under the remote instruction, quarantine, really cut a lot of our plans in the spring short. It was, it was very difficult for us as a club, but also as students as well. So we've canceled the rest of our events during the spring. We could not have Scarlet Classic 6, unfortunately, and we definitely anticipated it to be even bigger than last year's Scarlet Classic. So it was a very big disappointment that we couldn't have that. And I mean, and also regarding the fall, the university recently announced that all the classes and would be delivered online, and the events would also be canceled as well. We're going to follow that guideline. We're not going to have general meetings in person, for the org. But one of the decisions that we had made was to cancel our fall events, unfortunately, in-person fall events. I will say though that regardless of the university's decision, whether they would have allowed gatherings or not, we still would have canceled those events because we wouldn't feel comfortable hosting something of that size and nature given the current state of affairs.
Sure.
Yeah, but we are adapting. We are continually trying to change and just trying to fit into the current situation. So we are working towards organizing and hosting fall events. Where we want to all delivered virtually or online. Potentially using the LAN center possibly. Of course with social distancing applied and having it be sort of hybrid and everything. But yeah, and all of our meetings are continued to be conducted online. And we're still maintaining our structure and organization as an org, but just online, not in person. So.
Very cool. Yeah, and just kind of a shameless plug, since you mentioned it, the Esports Center, the next podcast episode that we will be doing will be on July 29th. And what I'll be looking to do there is do kind of an AMA where I'm kind of answering questions that people have about the Esports Center and what its operations might look like come the fall. So if you're interested in that, check that out. But that's not why we're here right now. So I wanted to follow up with you about, adjusting with the COVID-19 pandemic. What are some of the goals that the club has as it looks towards the upcoming academic year?
Right. So, I mean, I will preface this by saying that, esports has proven to be, across the board, has proven to be very resilient in the face of the pandemic. So we as an org want to prove to the university the potential of our org and how well we've managed and adjusted to this whole situation, at least in comparison to many other organizations. That's not to say that we're better than them. I'm sure that they're working very hard to maintain engagement.
You guys have been set up, like the Esports Center, with a particularly well-equipped set of resources to do things virtually, which I think is not something that can be said for every org. So yeah, I get where you're coming from with that.
Yeah, we definitely have the resources to do so, and just given the nature of what we do, a lot of video games can be played online nowadays, so we want to show the university, we want to, and show just overall, to the world that how and contribute to the image of esports and, how it's, how video games are not all evil, like, like many are led to believe, but how it's brought many people together, and given, and it just has had a positive impact on many people's lives, especially during a time like this.
Definitely.
Yep.
So, obviously all of that activity within the Rutgers Esports Club doesn't happen entirely, because of you. What are some of the leadership roles beyond president that are available to students within the Rutgers Esports Club for people who maybe, they're super interested in competitive, but they want to also get involved in maybe some of the other stuff that is kind of tangentially related to esports? What are some of those opportunities? What do they look like?
Yeah, so we do have different committees within the esports org. I mean, of course, there's also the different clubs and e-board positions of administrator type of positions. But in the Rutgers Esports umbrella organization, we have a bunch of different committees. So we have human resources, partnerships, social media, competitive, community relations, finances, content creation, stream and video production, and we cover a wide array of interests. A lot of our committees definitely apply towards various fields of study. So we've actually tried to we're actually reaching out to specific schools within Rutgers, like the School of Communication and the Business School, to recruit new members, new officers to help us reach our goals and contribute to the org, as well as help with their self growth.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So if prospective or incoming or even just curious current Rutgers students wanted to start getting involved with the Rutgers Esports Club, what is the best way for them to get started?
Right. I mean, well, a year ago my answer would have been different. Right. But it's not impossible to get involved. In fact, I'd be willing to go far as to say maybe it's a little bit easier to get involved, provided everything's online. Join the Discord. Get a little acquainted with everyone around. Join some of the clubs, some of the different clubs. Their respective and their respective channels or different communities they have going on. And a lot of clubs I know, League of Legends, for example, they're hosting their own events in the summer. Maybe if you're into League, get into that. Or some of the other clubs are definitely hosting their own events in the summer as well. Just get connected with the people on the server, and you'll definitely find your way.
Awesome.
Yep.
So one of the constants that I notice about esports is that because you can participate and spectate entirely online, the field doesn't have the same visibility to those who aren't like active participants. And so, the mainstream of the uninitiated don't often know about esports. For someone who may be learning about esports for the first time, or collegiate esports for the first time on this episode, what is something that you'd want them to know is happening in esports that makes it worth paying attention to?
Yeah, I mean, well, esports is a very much growing industry. It's increasingly getting more and more popular on the world stage. The fact that so many people can get involved in it. Like esports doesn't care if you're not very good at soccer, if you're not very good at football, or if you're not athletic or anything, unlike regular sports. So and it's showing in the fact that esports is getting more and more popular. Every day. Like I remember seeing an infographic about how esports will outpace popularity in terms of global viewership for all the sports except for soccer and American football, of course. But in terms of viewership, esports in general as a whole is just becoming more and more established, more popular in terms of viewership, and better than hockey, better than basketball, which is it doesn't sound true, but it very much is.
Yeah, well, I think it's a pretty unique time where a lot of that is becoming even more true, just because of some of the necessities of staying at home and all that, social distancing.
Right.
So that opportunity is only ever increasing. So I think that's definitely well put. Is there anything that I should have asked today that I haven't asked yet?
No. I mean, you've asked very, very good questions. I think we covered everything.
Awesome. Very cool. All right, well, we are going to wrap up the podcast for today. I want to thank everybody for coming out to watch live. If you are watching or listening to the recording of this podcast, all of the links that were mentioned, the Rutgers Esports Discord, the social media, and all of that will be included in the description for those episodes, so definitely check those out. And we will be back starting the week of July 27th for more content live on Twitch. That'll include some casual gaming, but then also more podcast episodes, and we're looking to get more and more students involved. And so, Seth, I want to thank you for being the first one for trailblazing the collaboration here. I think that we're gonna put together a lot of really cool stuff over the next few months. So stay tuned, make sure to follow the channel, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Thank you. Bye.